Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to read an article titled, I'm Not Attracted to My Husband, Marriage Without Chemistry. And big shout out to Joe for sending that over. And guys, this whole article is written by a woman, and she's going to go into this whole thing about how basically she's been married to her husband for 11 years, has some kids, and in no way, shape, or form is she in love with the guy at all. And she wasn't in love with him even when they got married. And you're going to see as she goes into her story that her situation is the classic tale of the girl who was a carousel rider, definitely chased after the bad boys, was always out for Chad and Tyrone, and definitely got hurt along the way many, many times, and basically realized that, you know what, I'm never going to get what I want from Chad and Tyrone, so I'm going to settle for the nice guy. And this is what she did. And you're going to see here, for the 11 years, she's been increasingly unhappy to the point now that she's really unhappy. So, and I'm doing this, guys, because for a couple of reasons. Number one, a lot of times I talk about, about marriage in today's world and how because of the family courts and the deck is stacked against guys, I strongly advise you guys to be extremely careful if you decide to go down that route. In fact, I encourage you not to do it, but if you're going to do it, you got to be extremely careful, and I can go on forever about that, but you've heard it. Because at the end of the day, guys can do everything right, and still they get hammered in the divorce process. She gets the house, the kids, the cars, the dog, the cat, everything. Part of his retirement, child support, alimony, and the guy could do everything right, and she could be cheating on the guy. And I've done stories like this, and I'm sure some of you guys know guys that this happened to, or maybe it happened to yourselves. The other part I don't talk about as often, is the fact that a lot of guys will get together with their wives, and basically, even if things were good in the beginning, they had chemistry and had fun together, they were attracted to each other and hooking up all the time, eventually, for most of the time, it goes away because eventually it gets boring and monotonous. You know everything about the other person, and the sex tends to slow down dramatically or stop altogether. And basically, you got two people living as roommates. They're just at best, friends. Friends raising the kids and all that, and they don't want to separate because of the kids, Or it's even worse where they can't stand each other, or they're fighting all the time. It's a bad environment to raise the children, and just everybody's unhappy. It sucks. So I warn you guys about that. And this is a situation more like that, where basically, talking about that. This is the reason why I warn you guys about these things. Now, like I said before, this doesn't mean that all marriages are like this. Okay, there are some people that do, believe it or not, in today's world, actually have a good thing going, some good marriages, and so good for them. That's awesome. But by and large, most people are unhappy. So I want to talk about these things. And the other thing, real quick, guys, before I get into the article, because I'm going on here, is a lot of very clueless guys get the idea in their heads, they delude themselves to think that, hey, you know what? When I was younger, I didn't get the pretty girls, right? But when I got older, then I got the pretty girl. And I'm talking about the guys that were the nice guys, or the guys that were pushovers, who just weren't ladies' men. Later in life, all of a sudden, some of these women are interested in them, and they feel like they got a prize, and they finally won, And I tell them they're delusional, because what really happened is these same women that wouldn't give them the time of day, who were off with the bad boys and all, realize that, oh crap, I'm like 30 years old now. The biological clock's going off. I want to have kids. So the guys I really want aren't going to settle for me, because either they are not interested in me, they want younger girls now because now the girl's older, or they're not going to settle to begin with. So they choose the nice guy. They pick a guy out and say, oh, he's marriage material. Perfect. He'll be the beta male provider, if you will. They'll get together with that guy, and that guy thinks like, yeah, I won. No, you didn't, because the marriage will be a lot like what we're describing here. So this is why I tell you guys to be careful, okay? And if you guys deep down know darn well you weren't exactly the ladies' men when you're younger, and all of a sudden you get a little bit older in life, and all of a sudden these types that wouldn't give you the time of day are all of a sudden chasing after you, you got to question a few things and be on the lookout to protect yourselves. Anyway, I'm going to get on here. So it starts off, my husband and I have been together for 11 years, married for 5, and have 2 beautiful children whom we adore. We function really well as a family and have a healthy, supportive household. However, right from the start, I have not been sure about my feelings towards him. Translation, I wasn't in love with him when we got married. I've had a terrible past with turmoil and relationships ending in heartbreak. I was really insecure and messed up and quite promiscuous. I always went for the bad boys or the boys who didn't want me, as the chase is what really turned me on. Because the bad boys make it a challenge. The bad boys don't validate. So the girls are chasing after that validation. What I tell you guys about validating women and compliments and all that type of stuff. What the bad boys do is they don't really do any of that stuff, if not at all, and the women are chasing after that because he is a challenge. So for you guys that are just simply into dating and hooking up and all that, remember that. Be a challenge. I'm not saying you have to be an asshole. I mean, a lot of guys are, and they get girls, but just simply by stepping back and not being too easily available and things like that, you'd be amazed at the impact it has. And you're not being a jerk about it. Anyway. However, when I met my husband, I decided that I wanted to get my life together and that I had enough of the unhealthy relationships. Translation, I spent my 20s chasing after Chad and Tyrone, the bad boys, but now I realize it's not going to go anywhere, so I got to find a nice guy to settle down with. So I denied the feelings of my heart because I lost trust in my heart and made a decision based on my head. I did find him really attractive the first night I met him. Our eyes locked and we hit off straight away. We got on really well and really clicked. He pretty much saved me, and in a way, I saved him. He has been my rock, and I have completely turned my life around. I am now fit, healthy, successful, and happy within myself and my achievements. Well, this actually sounds pretty good. But you're going to see that all these things that, again, sound pretty darn good aren't good enough. However, I've not been true to my feelings or honest with him that being with him has always felt wrong. Nice guy. Nice guys are not exciting. Nice guys don't keep her on her toes. That's the problem. Since the first night, my feelings toward him have slowly turned more and more to platonic. When he asked me to marry him, I felt in the pit of my gut that it wasn't right. But she went and married him anyway. On our wedding day, I almost felt sad, but I listened to my head and not my heart. He became my best friend, my companion, and the perfect father. It's hard to explain, and you may wonder why I even married him. It's not that hard to understand. I got your number like that, lady. I just thought that I could do without the chemistry, even though I'm not attracted to my husband anymore. I thought that the love alone would grow. Instead, I find myself more and more disconnected and unattracted. And now I've gotten to the point where I can't stand his smell, can't stand kissing him, all his little mannerisms annoy the hell out of me, and I can't stand him touching me in bed. I put a pillow between us so I can't smell him. The list goes on. And he is not, and she put in capital letters, not getting what he deserves out of a wife. Well, he's not. Absolutely. If this is the way she feels and this is her actions toward him. But I guarantee you this guy's probably a darn good guy. Does everything right in terms of, he does everything right on the outside, but he's not pushing her buttons emotionally and letting her have that chemistry. You know, I mean, the way she describes him and all these things is honestly what a guy would want out of a woman. You know, these positive things. You know, typical guys do not need a lot of the things that really push the buttons in women. Unpredictability and challenge and all. I mean, some guys go for women like that, but by and large, most guys like stability and loyalty and routine and things like that. But when it comes to women, no. Now, I'm willing to bet you probably this guy was obviously a little more exciting, took her out a lot more often, made things a little more interesting and being a little unpredictable, and probably, I'm willing to bet you this guy was definitely probably a pushover and pretty much put her on a pedestal, guaranteed. She's not mentioning it, but I guarantee that happened. If he didn't do that stuff, if he would just do some of the things, making him a little more exciting, this would probably be a little bit better. But nice guys are clueless. They don't know. They have no idea what it takes to push the buttons in the right way to get women attracted to you and stay attracted to you. And then you get this. I have not had the guts to tell him properly how I feel for 11 years, and it has been weighing on my mind heavily until now. 11 years he's been with this guy and wasting his time. I finally told him and have told him that I need time and space to sort my feelings out and decide if I'm in this for the long haul. If I'm willing to live without chemistry or whether or not we are just going to be friends. We agreed on the in-home separation. When she said we agreed, I think it's been more like she agreed. And amazingly enough, he is open to both outcomes. He loves me and the kids so much that he's being completely amicable and has moved into the spare room to give me the time I need. However, I still can't decide what to do. In other words, Mr. Nice Guy that she got married to is still Mr. Nice Guy 11 years later. Okay, do whatever you want, whatever you need, Your Highness. More like make up your damn, either you're in or out right now and start laying down the law. End of story. Because you can hear right here, I'm not sure how I feel, that type of crap. What she's describing there, how many of you guys have heard that at some point when you were younger? Right here. Because I used to make the same mistakes when I was younger, being the nice guy. You think that got me anywhere? Nope. I think the reason why I've been sitting on the fence for so long is because of how much my husband and I have going for us. We have the same morals. I don't know about that. We have the same morals, the same goals, the same taste, the same parenting views, and in lots of ways, we get on really well. We're open to almost everything except this topic. I don't know if I buy that. I think I guarantee you there's no way he knows about the skeletons in her closet. And I guarantee you, she's got a whole lot of skeletons in her closet. She's probably got a whole cemetery, Arlington Cemetery, in that closet that he doesn't know about. So I don't want to hear that he knows, everything. And work, though, together as a team. However, unfortunately, this hasn't changed how I feel. Guys, at the end of the day, the way a woman feels versus what she thinks, feelings are always going to trump thoughts when it comes to women. How they feel is everything, okay? That's why they can have a guy that literally treats them like garbage, is unpredictable, makes them have an emotional roller coaster, but pushes their buttons in the right way, that they'll go for him, even though he's completely wrong for her in so many ways that in your mind, logically, you'd say that you're out of your mind, okay? Their feelings will always win. Always. That is why if you know how to push the buttons in the right way, her feelings, her buttons, her feelings, that's what I'm trying to get at here, in the right way, it can work in your favor. My husband and I have already talked about the possibility of being apart. We have already agreed on all the co-parenting, fundamentals, finances, support, putting children first, sharing duties, bringing the kids up under the same roof, etc. And then I start asking myself the questions. Is it possible to co-parent and still function well as a divorced family? Well, yes, you can. It's far better to be happily divorced than unhappily married, in my opinion. I mean, at the end of the day, the guy's done everything right, but and you obviously heard about her past, but at the end of the day, if she's not happy, there's no sense in staying in the marriage. I mean, in my opinion, okay, and it's not fair to him. Why should he be in a marriage with a woman that's absolutely not in love with him at all? And you can see that she's starting to resent him. He's not doing anything wrong, but it's on her. And that guy deserves a chance to actually maybe be with a gal that treats him well, actually wants to be with him and is attracted to him and all that. Okay, life is too short. And the kids grew up in a house where the parents are resenting each other because you can see with the way she is now, it's only going to get worse. Those kids may end up in a situation just like that because they think that's what's normal. It happens very often. Do I deny my feelings and my heart for the sake of my children? Translation, stay in it for the kids. If you're going to be married and miserable and the kids are going to grow up in an unhappy, toxic environment, it's a bad idea. No. Do I have unrealistic expectations about a marriage? Yes. I mean, can you be in love with your husband long term, or is it okay to not have those types of feelings? Well, I will say this, that her expectations are definitely warped. Guaranteed. She went into this not even in love with the guy. But guys, understand this. A lot of women, and men for that matter, get married and they're not at all in love with the other person. They figure, you know what, this is as good as it's going to get. I'm getting on with age. I want to have kids. I'm with the family because they don't know any better. They figure, hey, my parents were like this. I don't think they were deeply in love with each other, but it worked because they don't know any better. And they get married and they find out the hard way. This is why I do these videos, to talk about these things, guys, just to bring awareness. I bring these things up and ask these questions and point these things out. Yeah, she has definitely unrealistic expectations about a marriage. Now, here's the deal. Is it impossible that you can have two people get together and actually be in love with each other and still have chemistry after many, many decades? It is possible. Okay, I've seen people that are like this, and I say, great, that's awesome. It's rare, though, okay? And I don't care how long you've been together or how great you are, you're going to have some turmoil, and it can be a roller coaster. It just depends on the situation and the people. But if you got one person that's very giving and the other person is very selfish, it's not going to work. You got to have two people that are actually both giving and willing to try things and maybe make it work if you're going to do that. Let me just make that clear. It says, can you be in love with your husband long term? Is it okay not to have those type of feelings? Well, she's wondering, should I stay in the marriage again for the kids or stay in it because I don't feel that way? Well, it's going to eat her away and not be fair to him. I've read that marriage is mainly friendship, but surely you need sexual chemistry to survive. Am I asking too much to have the chemistry as well as the friendship? Are you better off being single than with the wrong man, if it means being true to yourself? Well, it's not fair to him, and honestly, it's not fair to you. Okay, I'm not trying to take her side here, but I'm trying to be reasonable in the sense of looking at this to help some of you guys out. But if you were a guy in this situation, you were unhappy, and there was no possible way it's going to ever be fixed or resolved or things like that, you got to ask yourself, what's the better situation? Because life's short. And is it fair to you? Is it fair to her to stay in it? Really? So now, this article was published a while ago, but then there was an update to what she did. And so I'm going to read the update. It's not too long, but I'm going to get into it. She says here, I wrote the offbeat home post, I'm not attracted to my husband, marriage without chemistry, in 2013. After 6 years of working on myself, finding myself, and trying to do absolutely everything I could to save the marriage, I finally had the strength to call it quits. Okay, all of a sudden she's a superhero here. I spent years researching, years in therapy, years working on past issues, and years meditating, but unfortunately still had no feelings whatsoever for my husband. Well, she didn't have any feelings for him to begin with. I also realized that he was never, and she put that in giant letters, going to change, and never, again in giant letters, going to work on the marriage. With all the personal development I had done, I felt like I outgrew him in the end. So it sounds to me, call me crazy, that she's kind of painting him to be in the picture to be a bad guy here. When I went through the article just moments ago, and guess what? This guy sounded like a good guy who was doing everything right, and even when she was having issues, when she brought up, he was being accommodating and trying to be helpful. He moved out to a different spare bedroom and all that. So I don't want to hear this. He never was going to do this and never was going to do that. But again, how many times have you guys heard stories that I've done or know situations and scenarios when things are twisted around to make the guy out to be the villain so the woman can justify her asshole actions? Some of the key factors in my decision were also that we all moved back to my home in New Zealand, where we have the financial support to live separately. Also, me learning to love myself enough to know that I can be loved by someone else and love back. I don't, again, based on me talking about her, obviously when she was younger, she obviously was pretty warped to begin with. So I'm willing to bet you she's going to go right back to guys that she was attracted to, but they obviously weren't very good for her. And what's probably going to happen is she's going to then be wishing later on down the road that she had this guy back. And if this guy was a true Mr. Nice Guy, didn't learn anything, he'll probably take her back. Most of all, I learned that marriage ending does not necessarily mean you are tearing your children's lives apart. With love, respect, and influence, your children do not have to suffer ongoing trauma from a marriage ending. Well, I agree with that. If both parties handle it well, and they're not vicious and vindictive and spiteful and all that nasty stuff to each other, and they both are working together, yeah, it can go well for the kids. I mean, it's going to be hard in the beginning, of course. I actually couldn't believe how many people made it into such a bloody negative thing, and how so many articles said that staying together for the children, despite your own unhappiness, is the best thing to do. And I disagree with that. Staying in it, no matter how unhappy you are for the kids, is a actually stupid-ass idea to do. Well, sorry. She's not sorry. Well, sorry, but I think that's completely wrong. My children are thriving. They have two parents who adore them and co-parent completely amicably. We still do things together, and everyone is happier. When you dig a bit deeper into the research, you will find that most children bounce back with minimal damage as long as their needs are met. This can be done as a couple or separately. Do everything you can to try saving things, but if it isn't working, it ain't working. You can't force yourself to love someone. You shouldn't stay in a marriage just because the person you married. People do change. Well, I agree with that. I mean, people do change. You can have people that really click together initially, but over time, usually over a decade or more, what they want out of life can change. Their values can change. Their political views can change. I mean, look at the last 4 or 5 years here in the United States. That says a hell of a lot. Things like that. And you end up not being the same people. And you you're kind of strangers to each other. So why stay in that situation where you're both unhappy, your needs are not being met, etc., etc.? Okay, and again, this goes both ways, men and women. It takes both sides to make it work. If one person is putting all the work in and the other one isn't, it's time to move on. I really hope she's not making out to be that she's putting all the work in and he's not doing anything at all, because that's a bunch of crap. It is not unrealistic to want love and to be in love. What a load of garbage that is. I think people who think that's unrealistic obviously don't have very much self-worth. Well, it depends on your view of these type of things and your perspective. I want a great love that goes on forever. Of course, passion and chemistry will fade, but when both people work on a marriage, your love can last. That's another jab at her husband. I've now seen it firsthand. You just have to meet the right person. So if love like this is important to you, don't give up hope. Well, like I said, given her past, what she described in the beginning of the story, I would not be at all surprised if, I don't know how old she is, let's just say she's in her 40s, and let's just say that she takes care of herself, because she did say she was fit, and she's good looking for her 40s. She's not going to have a problem getting guys. It's not going to be a problem. The thing is, the type of guys that she's going to go for are going to be guys that are going to give her a lot of excitement, and are not going to be the type of guys that she's going to have fall in love with her and have the romantic fairy tale story which she's, deep down really hopes to get. Okay? So eventually it'll be interesting to see what happens if she goes for these type of guys and eventually realizes, you know what? I had that great guy all along, my ex-husband, but now he's moved on to somebody else. We shall see. But anyway, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And again, guys, this goes to show you, not that this is a different perspective. You got the financial aspect, how guys can get hammered in the family courts, and this side of marriage, what things can go wrong in terms of just things fade. No one's in love with each other. Or even worse, the girl marries the guy, or the guy marries the girl, not even in love with her, trying to do those life goals like marriage and all that shit. And look what happens. And again, to the guys that think that they got the girl because the pretty girl finally went for them later in life, well, it's usually because they couldn't get the other guys, so they're settling for your ass. So just be aware of these things, guys, just to protect yourselves. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.